superior hiding, superior coverage, simply superior.
Kel Charcoal Toothpaste.
There you are. It's good to see you here on Ghana Tonight. I'm Kemeni Amano. Let's get into our top stories. National Investigative Bureau fails to arrest Akwetia MP Ernest Kumi in his constituency. Tonight, a jeering crowd and an MP hoping to turn himself in. Now, Cabinet approves 2025 budget. Already, some analysts are forecasting new taxes. Tonight, all you need to know about what could be in this budget come Tuesday, March 11th. "30 years after the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, women are still asking for equal rights. Why is the world not listening enough?" Those are the big stories. You can be a part of the program as you watch us here on TV3, on StreetNews.com, Facebook, YouTube, and X.com. If you'd like to share your thoughts, comments, or questions, use the hashtag Ghana Tonight. Let's bring you a summary of the night's biggest stories.
Cabinet has approved the 2025 budget statement to Parliament on March 11. Government says will keep faith with Ghanaians on its 120-day social contract. Speaking to the press shortly after the Cabinet meeting, Minister of State for Government Communications Felix Kwachifosu says government is mindful of its social commitment and intends to keep them.
The budget will encapsulate the economic and financial policy of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, President of the Republic of Ghana, for the 2025 financial year. The budget will capture the state of the Ghanaian economy and bring Ghanaians up to speed on what exactly we inherited.
Members of Parliament have concluded the debate on President Mahama's maiden State of the Nation address. The minority leader says the formation of committees and dialogues indicates lack of direction for the government, but the claims were denied by the majority members, who argue that the country was broken on all fronts by the past administration.
Today, the NDC has forgotten that it came into office with its own manifesto. What is all this about committee here, committee there, committee here? It is not for purposes of consultation. They are only doing this to disown their own initiatives because they are not sure of their initiatives.
When John Dramani Mahama hands over the country to you and in 8 years he comes and sees a near total collapse of the Ghanaian state, definitely he has a right to lament. And we will lament. We will lament because the city has collapsed. We will lament because the cocoa sector has collapsed. We will lament because STC, all those state institutions have collapsed.
The Civil Society Budget Forum is advocating for a review of Ghana's public sector debt accounting to align with international standards. According to the group, the current system allows excessive discretion in debt classification, worsening the country's debt position. Forum member Abdul Karim Mohammed emphasized the urgent need for reforms.
We have had a situation in this country where in the recent past, the Ministry of Finance determined which type of debt must be captured in our national debt. And that gives you a false impression of fiscal space. that opportunity to borrow more, because if you do your debt to GDP ratio, it will tell you that you have not hit the ceiling yet, so you will keep going. And that is why we are advocating that this shouldn't be allowed going forward. We must use the International Public Sector Accounting Standard for reporting our national debt.
Civil society organizations against illegal mining are intensifying pressure on the government to replace the executive director of the Minerals Commission and certain police commanders in the eastern region for compromising efforts to combat illegal mining in forest reserves. Convener Daryl Bosu argues that the actions of these individuals are emboldening illegal miners to invade forest reserves.
The failure to enforce effectively laws against illegal mining in parts of the eastern region is a clear indication of poor leadership and complacency by both the divisional and Eastern South Command, all located at Chebi in the eastern region of Ghana. We are therefore calling for a more proactive law enforcement and effective leadership by asking for the replacement of the Eastern South Police Commander DCOP George Bwedi Bosman and ACP Renosam, Divisional Police Commander, for their inability to curb illegal mining activities in the region. We call on the government to, as a matter of urgency, replace the Executive Director of the Minerals Commission with a visionary leader who would usher in a new era of responsible mining.
The National Insurance Commission, NIC, is set to review motor insurance premiums before end of the month, barring any last-minute changes. The move, which is expected to impact motorists across the country, comes amid ongoing discussions about the sustainability of insurance pricing in the face of rising claims. The NIC earlier suspended a proposal for 10% upward increase in motor insurance tariffs.
For everything that you want more of course you have to pay more for. And so the request for the additional 2,000 Ghana cedis to make it 8,000, insurers are charging for the year 40-something Ghana cedis, which amounts to about 13 cedis a month. So for us, we are happy to grant their request to improve their limit. When they suffer through an accident or people suffer because of a motor accident, they can be compensated adequately.
Ghana Brief, therefore, if you just tuned in, this is Ghana Tonight, and I'm Kemini Amano. Now, Finance Minister presents government's first budget. It promises to have you at the center and in mind. What that means coming up right now. President John Dramani Mahama is now ready to share his first fiscal policy document with the Ghanaian people. This is as Cabinet approved the 2025 budget, which Finance Minister Dr. Kasala Toforson will present to Parliament on Tuesday, March 11th, 2025. Now, Government Communication Minister Felix Kwachiofusu, addressing the press after Cabinet meeting, hinted the budget will keep faith with Ghanaians on its 120-day promises. Take a listen.
Ladies and gentlemen of the media, we just finished a special session, a special cabinet session, which considered the 2025 budget to be presented by the finance minister on the 11th of March, which is next week, Tuesday. There was also a briefing on the state of the energy sector by the Minister for Energy and Green Transitions, and he will join us shortly to shed some light on some of the key highlights of the briefing. But regarding the 2025 budget, I'm happy to inform you that Cabinet has approved the 2025 budget, which was presented to it by the Minister for Finance, and the budget will encapsulate the economic and financial policy of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, President of the Republic of Ghana, for the 2025 financial year. the budget will capture the state of the Ghanaian economy and bring Ghanaians up to speed on what exactly we inherited. Yes, the president made incursions into the state of the economy during the State of the Nation address, but the finance minister will present greater details in terms of what we met. The budget will also respond to the economic crisis bequeathed to us by the NPP.
Felix Kwachiofosu is Government Communications Minister. Let's have a chat on the back of this. I'll bring in first Professor Lord Mensah, who is with the University of Ghana Business School. Prof, I appreciate you talking to us. Good evening to you. Is there excitement for the first budget of the John Mahama II administration?
I would say yes. I mean, Ghanaians are expecting what, the administration will have for them. And we should appreciate that this is the first budget, being, owned by the current finance minister and then the government. And looking at the policies that, made the government, won the election 2024, it is expected. And we can only deduce, the policy implications from the budget that will be read, depending on the allocations that the government will do. So, Ghanaians are going to be excited. Very anxious to wait for what exactly is going to be in the budget for them. I remember there are some, taxes that government has, promised to remove them. Mm-hmm. And we all know those taxes are, I don't want to use the term nuisance taxes, but then they were more or less, choking production. And if, a budget is going to be read, obviously, a typical business person or a typical consumer in such a country will expect what the government has in there. And not just to remove the budget alone, also to look at how, the government can make up for the possible losses that will come as a result of, taking off those levies and other things. And then if you look at the banking sector, for instance, the key thing in there will be whether, the government will continue in the trajectory of the IMF program, reading a budget that will have a very small budget deficit that will not call for unnecessary financing within the local economy. Remember, the Ghanaian economy now cannot access funding from, outside, the country because of the debt, issues that we have. So I think it's a budget that everybody may want to have a feel of it. And it should reflect what made, the government, win the election 2024.
I see. Prof, I'll have you hold on, but because you spoke about taxes, the anticipation for the announcement of the removal of what you have described as the nuisance taxes, something the NDC administration has promised during the campaign period. I want to bring in now Francis Boy, who is a tax consultant. Francis, you are saying that you expect the government to also introduce some new taxes. Why? Francis, I'm afraid we can't hear you. You'd have to unmute. Well, Francis, let's hear you on why you say that you expect that come March 11th, 2025, when the finance minister reads the budget, you anticipate that there will be new taxes introduced. Talk to us about that.
So the point I was making is that if, like Prof said, if they remove the e-levy, which is going to cost them like 2.4 billion cedis, they remove the betting tax, they have to make up the difference from somewhere. And from the look of things, it appears that they will want to go back to the financial services. You remember financial services VAT was there in 2015. Then when the NPP government came, they took it away. So obviously, if you listen to the National Economic Dialogue, the finance minister kept mentioning something like that. So I won't be surprised they bring something from the VAT angle to come and replace the e-levy that is going to be taken off. Again, they are likely to go to the mining sector. They keep saying that our, the profit that we make from the minerals and then the resources that we have is not enough. So possibly they may raise the current corporate tax of 35% to let's say 40%. Again, the VAT, recently they conducted some survey and it appears that they are saying that we are not earning enough from the VAT. So most of the exemptions, especially those that relate to household and industrial exemptions, they are going to take it away. And they promise it in the manifesto. So based on the report that they have released, certainly they are going to reform the VAT, and that may save them some money in order to make up for the losses that they're going to incur from the e-levy and then the betting tax. It doesn't look like they would like to take away the COVID-19, even though they promise it. COVID-19 alone in 2025 is likely to give around 3.97 billion Ghana cedis, but it looks like the discussion has gone down a bit, which suggests that they may want to keep it, even though businesses would have.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, you don't expect that the government will withdraw all the nuisance taxes it promised immediately.
So, I mean, e-levy, they have been very consistent, but it doesn't look like COVID-19 will go. It's likely it's going to stay because it brings a lot of money. And the discussion on it has really gone down. I'm rather expecting them to do more on the VAT angle, take away some of the exemptions in order to make up the differences.
I'm going to come back to you. We'll look at some of the numbers on what, how it could show up the revenue loss when we remove those taxes. We are already seeing some 7.6 billion in revenue loss if we remove those nuisance taxes. And so these new taxes, the revision of the VAT, when we bring those back, I want to understand from you what the numbers will look like if indeed come March 11th, those taxes are announced, right? But in the meantime, I'll go on to Prof. Lord Mensah. Prof, do you see this being a wise decision for the current administration if indeed they are to introduce new taxes at this time?
Well, I don't think so, because if you look at the happenings on the ground, I think the current administration made a lot of noise about, the COVID-19, levy. I mean, the argument was that COVID is past, so why is that money being taken from Ghanaians? The concept or the whole notion behind the COVID-19 levy was to, extend our health facilities and other things. But, at the end of the day, we tied, Agenda 111 to, our, petroleum inflows, what we keep in reserves from our petroleum revenue. And so why would, COVID-19 still, stay? Like the other presenters said, government needs money. But then at the end of the day, the same government appreciate that, the taxes and the levies were choking businesses. And businesses, there seemed to be some kind of tax fatigue. That is why businesses were not growing. And therefore, they promised to remove, these taxes and then look at how they can cut down expenditure. And they've started giving us a signal, which is, giving us a small government, which is looking at 60 ministers. And then also some key things that they have been doing over the past, days. Looking at 6 March, for instance, I'm not saying the money that will be saved there will be enough to cover up those revenue losses. But then some key expenditure cut as a result of making sure, we rationalize how we spend. And then also the expenditures that we have control over. Those are the discretionary ones. We should be able to, control it one way or the other. We should be able to, make some savings to make up for the losses that will come as a result of removing, those 3 items from our revenue tax handles. And we should understand that, yes, I mean, the government needs money, but the same government, has given us a signal that, look, in as much as you're looking for money and you don't have it, you can easily cut down your expenditure. And, being within the IMF program, if we are to read a budget, which will consistently follow the IMF program with, a budget deficit of fast approaching around, 5% to our GDP, we should be able to control the revenue control our expenditure to make up for that small budget deficit that's required by the program.
And Prof, to support the point you have just made, I've been speaking to the chairman of the National Economic Dialogue, Ishmael Yamson, in this soon-to-air interview on hot issues. He also sides with you on the subject matter of government really minimizing expenditure in order to show up revenue. I want us to take a listen to him, and then I'll come back to you on that.
There are two sides to balancing a budget. There's the revenue side, and there's the expenditure side. We always talk about the revenue side. We always forget about the expenditure side. Yes. One way of balancing your budget is also to cut your costs. And I'm telling you, the cost of doing government business in Ghana is simply too high. Only in the recent past, we had over 100 ministers, right? Did we need over 100 ministers? Now we say 60, right? So, is the 60 truly the number we need? But let's assume that for now we need 60. You see the cost saving, right? And if you go, Dr. Nemo Thompson demonstrated something at the dialogue, where simply registering a loudspeaker. Sorry, I brought.
Yeah, he had imported it from South Africa. Well, there'll be more of that interview on Sunday at 2 p.m. here on TV3. But Prof, it goes to the point you're making about government cutting its expenditure. Obviously, this administration has shown signs, but is it enough for this first 4 years that indeed they could be making some savings as far as, government expenditure is concerned?
Yes, I think if I were to be the finance minister at this time, I would have come up with, the savings we are making for reducing the number of ministers from 100 and over to, the 60 that we have now. And looking at the way we decorate our, ministerial, officers, and then also even the presidency, you can trace it to our culture. You see the way we decorate our kings and chiefs in our towns and tribes and all those. Clearly, it tells you that if someone is in league, he needs to be decorated very well. I mean, to the extent that people will respect that kind of position, and we expect output from them. And clearly, maybe at the hint side, I don't know whether it is being done or not. I want to see a clear kind of KPIs for the various ministers that the president has appointed, that at the end of the 4 years or at the end of the year before the next budget will be read, these are the key expectations we want you to meet. If you don't meet them, you fall short of occupying that position. You don't just enjoy your salaries and throwing things on social media and then be calling yourself a minister. You must work. So
indeed, Prof, let me bring in now Francis Boy. Francis, let's crunch the numbers. You have said that you have predicted or projected that the government will introduce new taxes on March 11th for their first fiscal policy document. What do the numbers look like if indeed these taxes are introduced? In fact, in the revision of VAT, are we looking at a downward revision, upward revision? What is it looking like?
So when they take away some of the exemptions, Possibly we may even make more than how much we may lose on the COVID-19. Like I've mentioned, on e-levy, like I've mentioned, COVID-19 to me doesn't seem like the government will want to take it away. You remember they just started talking about Agenda 111, saying that there's so much debt or some amount of money is needed. So clearly, the discussion on this is not too loud for them to, scrap it. If they're able to revamp the VAT, they will be able to raise a lot, close to 6.4 billion cities that they may lose from the.
I see, and this revamping, is the revamping increasing the current 15% that we are paying, or your projection is that we'll have more people paying the 15%?
So you see, currently, if you look at our VAT law, there are some transactions that we don't pay VAT at all. So those ones are what they are targeting. They want to take it away. They now want to bring it into the VAT net so that we will be paying VAT on it. The Grader Association started saying that the government introduced the VAT on real estate. They are not enforcing it. The finance minister mentioned that they are likely to do that. So this will bring in the revenue that they may need. But beside all, the expectation is that they are going to do more enforcement or compliance. We're talking about cutting expenditure, but the two major expenses that take away our tax revenue is wages and salaries, and also interest payments. And these two elements continue to be there. In 2026, interest payments will just resume. So the only way out is to find ways to increase the revenue and also embark on a serious enforcement. Currently, VAT, we are just doing 18% to our total tax revenue. When Togo, for example, is doing around 40%. So there's going to be drastic enforcement when it comes to the VAT, and we should expect something on financial service. Maybe the telecom sector today may want to go there because they want to target sectors that are making profit.
I see.
I'll be surprised if they even touch communication service tax.
Indeed, gentlemen, unfortunately, I'm quickly running out of time. So, Prof, I'll give you the last word on this. This government is one that prides itself in, in embarking on a lot of infrastructure projects. They have really, prided themselves in that. What are your expectations? Do you expect to hear some announcements tomorrow as far as spending on infrastructure is concerned?
Yes, so spending on infrastructure, we have to be careful, quite sensitive, because infrastructure, deals with long-term financing. And so you need to look at within this economy and wherever your financing sources are going to be. Within this economy, all the investable funds are within the treasury bill zone. That is maximum of 1 year. You can't use that to finance infrastructure. So in the budget, I'm expecting that there will be clear outline of how, the government will engage the private sector. When it comes to infrastructure. And I want to see to the point where roads, to the point some major roads can be, privatized. And that is what I want to see in the budget. So we can get infrastructure, running. For now, when it comes to infrastructure, we have to be careful how, what we promise the people, because financing, by government alone, I don't think it's going to be possible.
Indeed.
Because you can't raise money, and for a long term, and you really have to engage the private man, and then government will recognize its equity in the contract that they go with the private.
Indeed. So we've got to be careful with the promises we make. Gentlemen, I appreciate you talking to us. Thank you so much. Francis Boy, tax consultant, Professor Lord Mensah. He's with the University of Ghana Business School. We spent about 30 minutes, or maybe less, about 20 minutes, on the subject of the 2025 budget, and the very first one for the President, John Dramani Mahama, in his second term, so to speak. I want us to look at something else now. Akwatia MP narrowly misses jail time tonight as the National Investigation Bureau fails to discharge bench warrant on him despite coming face to face with the MP. Tonight, Akwetia MP, Ernest Kumi, who is facing a bench warrant, dodged arrest by the hair. The National Investigative Bureau beseeched the officers of the NPP in Akwetia to pick up the MP. The incident drew the attention of a crowd of onlookers and supporters of Kumi, who was in the constituency to participate in Juma prayers. It is unclear why the arrest didn't happen as the NIB personnel drove off amidst a jeering mob. Look at this. So what you just saw, a jeering mob and the personnel of the NIB driving off after failing to discharge that bench warrant. But let's get the details of this story. Yvonne Ikwe has been following it. She's joined us with a bit more. Yvonne is Eastern Region correspondent. Yvonne, talk to us about this incident. But first, tell us, where is Ernest Kumi tonight?
Good evening, Kameni. The whereabouts of the Akwetia MP, Ernest Kumi, is not clear. We're not sure whether he's still in the constituency after today's issue that has happened, or probably he's moved. Now, what we're seeing on our screens, or what happened today, was as a result of the altercation between some party members and residents who were resisting unidentified men, supposedly from the National Investigative Bureau, who had tracked the MP from the Akwetia Central Mosque to the party office after he joined the Muslims for the Ramadan activities. Now, these men were hoping to get the MP, but they were not successful because of the resistance from the party people and the residents. This has become an issue in the constituency. We do know that there's an easy come in the constituency because those for the MP have resisted and have vowed to resist any attempt on his arrest, while the others too were probably hoping that the ruling as given would be adhered to. But I must say that as it stands now, we do not know which laws is governing the men to get the MP, because as at the last ruling by the Supreme Court, they had stayed the proceedings by the Koforidua High Court. And so we're hoping to follow through to see exactly what would happen. Now, before today, after the December 7th elections, coalition for that constituency did not end. And the coalition had to be done in Accra. Following that, the Electoral Commission duly declared Ernest Kumi as the MP elect with some 90,000 votes, while the NDC's candidate Henry Boachi had some 17,000. The NDC did not agree with the process of coalition, hence filed an interim injunction at the Koforidua High Court. That interim injunction was upheld by the Koforidua High Court, meaning that Ernest Kumi could not have gone to Parliament to be sworn in as MP for the January 7th swearing-in exercise. The court held that that action and his non-appearance in court amounted to contempt, hence his conviction and bench warrant for his arrest. His counsel, Gary Nimaku, had filed a motion at the Supreme Court seeking an order of certiorari to ensure that every ruling made by the Koforidua High Court is quashed. The Supreme Court is yet to determine whether to listen to the matter or not, but has stayed
absolutely.
So this is where we are now, Kevin.
Absolutely, Yvonne. And I want us to go back to that period at the Supreme Court. This is the petitioner's lawyer, Bernard Bediako-Beidu, at the last hearing.
You rightly heard the Supreme Court saying that there was an issue with regards to whether or not the contemnor, who is the applicant in the instant application, should even be granted a hearing at the apex court of the land. And their reasons were that there was a matter that they were aware of, that he was convicted on with regards to a contempt application that was filed against him for his disobedience to the court orders and got sworn in as Member of Parliament. So the court was of the view that when it is like that, the sanctity of the court is at stake here. And so you cannot run to the Supreme Court when that process is not ended and then have the Supreme Court, as it were, whitewash you of your sins. And so they were of that opinion, but they had to retire and then confer and come back. And when they came back, their view was that we should address them on the law with regards to such issues. When it happens, what should the Supreme Court do? And so we've been given 7 days to file our
Bernard Bediako-Beidu there, he's lawyer for the petitioner. Listen, Yvonne, stay with me here. I want us to find out from you. We know that the NIB had gone there to pick up the Honourable Member of Parliament for Akwatia, Ernest Kumi. In the end, Ernest Kumi didn't go with them. Do we know what happened between those two events?
Well, like I early on explained, the arrest as by the alleged personnel from the National Investigative Bureau did not happen because some party members and some residents who were present at the party office resisted the action.
So it's not the case. It's not the case, Yvonne. It's not the case that the MP had told the NIB he will turn himself in.
Okay, so if I get you right, we're asking if indeed the MP did say that he would turn himself in as agreed. Well, I cannot be able to clarify that comment as allegedly mentioned by the MP himself, because we haven't had official engagement with him. But we did know that the arrest did not happen. And so we're hoping that before March 12th, when the Supreme Court would recall the matter, he would duly do as he's been asked to say.
Very well. So Yvonne, stay with me again, because I'll come back to you. I want us to understand what the law says or how the law applies when it comes to the arrest of an MP. We all know about the immunities they have, but in events like this, could an arrest of this nature be done because of the existing bench warrant? Let's take a look at what the law says quickly. Civil or criminal processes coming from any court or place out of Parliament shall not be served on or executed in relation to the Speaker or a member or the clerk to Parliament while he's on his way to, attending at, or returning from any proceedings of Parliament. I guess the key phrase there, he is on his way to, attending at, or returning from any proceedings of Parliament. And indeed, in the current standing orders of Parliament, there is provision that if an MP is arrested, and this does not apply at the time, there is a time frame within which the Speaker of Parliament should be immediately informed. In fact, it goes on to say that when the mace of the Speaker goes to wherever the arrest is taking place or wherever the said MP is being detained, then a release must be followed after that. So there's a lot of provision around this. So the question we'll ask tonight is whether or not his presence in his constituency has anything to do with attending to or returning from proceedings of Parliament. Now, that's something I want you to think about. In the meantime, let's go back to Yvonne real quick. Yvonne, so talk to us. We saw that the incident drew a lot of attention onlookers and supporters alike. How is the party responding to this attempted arrest?
Well, the party from the region and the constituency is yet to officially speak on the issue. But between the time the incident happened and afterwards, they haven't been happy at the turnout of events, especially when they do know that the Supreme Court has stayed proceedings by the Koforidua High Court. They're wondering exactly who the people were, why they keep tracking the MP in the constituency. So they are seeking answers, but that really, they have vowed that as long as the MP comes into the constituency to perform his duties, they will protect him. What is hoping that the police, the national security operatives, and whoever holds his or her mandates there would bring clarification into the matter and ensure that there is peace in the Akwatia constituency from today until the finality is drawn on this particular issue.
Indeed, Yvonne, always a pleasure talking to you. Yvonne Nikwe is our Eastern Region correspondent. We'll continue to follow this story and bring you updates as they emerge, whether or not the MP finally, or, you know, let me put it this way, whether or not that bench warrant is finally discharged by the arresting authorities. Now, remember also, Wednesday is just around the corner. The Supreme Court will have to attend to that matter or decide whether or not it will attend to Ernest Kumi's appeal at all. Now, well, not an appeal. He wants to quash the High Court ruling. Now, let's move on to a related matter. That the High Court in Techiman has dismissed the election petition filed by the NDC parliamentary candidate Christopher Beyere, challenging the election of Martin Ejay Mensah Kosa as being invalid since the petitioner failed to apply for security for costs to be determined and paid within the period prescribed by law in line with Section 18.2 of the Representation of the People Law 1992, PNDC Law 284. I don't know why the lawyers are making me read a lot of this tonight, but let me explain that to you. Let's look at it quickly. We'll quote directly from the Constitution. An election petition shall be presented within 21 days after the date of the publication in the Gazette of the results of the election to which it relates, except that a petition questioning an election on an allegation of corrupt practice and specifically alleging a payment of money or the award to have been made by the person whose election is questioned or to have been made on his behalf to his knowledge may be presented within 21 days after the date of the alleged payment. The presentation of an election petition under subsection 1 shall not be valid unless within the time specified in subsection 1, the petitioner gives security for cause. So if you waste the respondent's time or the cost time, that is the security of course there, which should have been paid. And that was not done by the petitioners in the case of the election petition on the Techiman South recently concluded elections in the 2024 race. So that security of course was not done. Security for cause, excuse me, security for cause was not done. And for that reason, the matter could not proceed in the High Court. So that's it for related matters. Let's look at something else now. Well, tonight, an innocent man walks free after decades long in jail. That's a story you want to stay on for. It's heart-wrenching, and I want to tell you all about it, but only when I come back. Don't go away. Welcome back. This is Ghana Tonight. A quick note, my attention has been drawn to the fact that our correspondent had indicated that the Supreme Court had quashed the High Court ruling in the case of the Akwetia MP. That is not the case. What the Supreme Court did was to stay the sentencing, not even the judgment in that case, but the sentencing, and it didn't touch on the bench warrant either. That is why the NIB went there. But away from that, tonight a man gets to go home after nearly 2 decades in jail for a crime he did not commit. The Court of Appeal acquitted and discharged businessman Yawapia, who wrongfully spent 19 years behind bars. His saving grace, the court now found no evidence connecting him to the crime. The appeals court also found that the judge at the original trial completely misapprehended the evidence, including a claim Yawapia had pleaded guilty to the crime, even when court records showed he entered a not guilty plea. Joseph Akable is our chief legal correspondent. He's been following the story. Let's get into this messy and distressing story. Joseph, what else do we know about this case? How did he get here?
I mean, it's an incident that took place in 2006, and it had to do with a man and his wife who were returning from the airport. When they got to their residence, some men were waiting at the entrance. The men were wielding machete and other implements. They attacked them. And so that was the robbery incident. Police investigators started looking into the matter, and eventually, by placing phone calls to some of the stolen mobile phones, they were able to have the individuals who had come to acquire the phones mention the names of various persons, including Yawapia, who was picked up along with the other accused persons. And so the trial took off, and in terms of the evidence that was available against Yawapia, it had to do with one, the phone calls that were made to the individuals who mentioned his name. Second, the other accused persons also had mentioned him as being part of the gang. And the third is the claim by the court that he had pleaded guilty when the charges were leveled against him. Now, when the appeal was filed, his lawyers had argued that, look, in the first place, right from when he was arrested, he denied any involvement in that particular crime. And so the impact about people mentioning his name does not discharge the burden of the prosecution. The prosecution ought to leave evidence to show that he indeed committed a said offense. Again, the confession by the co-accused person, the court says those are matters that still ought to be checked, especially when the individual has denied it. And the court said that, look, there is the possibility that accused persons make various comments just to throw off investigators and prosecutors and to limit their own involvement in the crime by mentioning others as part of the crime. The court noted, interestingly, that the man and his wife who were attacked, when they were asked whether they had seen the accused person at the scene of the crime, they could not confirm with certainty that they had seen him there. So the court said that clearly there was no evidence connecting them. The court also made a disturbing observation that the High Court had indicated that he had pleaded guilty, where the court's record showed quite clearly that he had denied the offense, and there was a full trial in an attempt to prove his guilt. And interestingly, the state prosecutors that handled this particular appeal did admit and agree with the prosecution that yes, the High Court's conclusion with regards to the plea of guilty was totally an error, and again did indicate that the evidence did not show completely that the accused had committed a crime. So it was as a result of these matters that the court came to the conclusion that the accused should not have been convicted per the evidence that was put before the trial court.
I see. You know, worthy of note for me, catches my attention every time, is the plea he entered. He entered a not guilty plea, and yet the judge at the time of the original trial ignored that and still found him guilty. I mean, however you explained it. What happens in this case when this is so clear that justice was misapplied here?
I mean, two things. We've seen instances where the court may make some consequential orders with regards to maybe if it takes the view that the conduct of the judge is problematic. In this instance, the court did not do so, but did express serious concerns about the conduct of the judge. One other question that has come up by many has to do with the question of compensation. Now, if you take a look at Article 14(7) of Ghana's Constitution, it makes the point that where a person who has served the whole or part of the sentence acquitted on appeal by a court other than the Supreme Court, the court may certify to the Supreme Court that the person acquitted be paid compensation, and the Supreme Court may, upon examination of all the factors it may think fit whether acquittal by Supreme Court may order compensation to be paid. And so once the decision came out, the court could have certified to the Supreme Court, asking that the Supreme Court takes a look at it and decides whether or not to award compensation for him. The lawyers for the individual could also take the matter up to the Supreme Court to ask that they order for some compensation to be paid, especially given that the court has come to the conclusion the state prosecutors actually agree that the evidence that was available simply no way they connected him to the crime such that he should not have been convicted. And he's been in custody since 2006 when he was picked up.
I mean, does it leave room for some, sanctions of sorts against this judge? Obviously, didn't do the job right.
I mean, with the absence of any consequential orders being issued by the courts, I mean, the only other option potentially could be that the lawyers may want to take it up through the administrative processes with the Chief Justice, but we do not get a sense that that's an option they may be considering at this stage. What we are learning is the potential of the compensation being an avenue that they could want to pursue at this moment. But I mean, it's one of excitement for him in that after being in jail for almost 20 years, he gets to go home finally.
I see. Joseph, I'm afraid we'd have to end our conversation, although there's a bit more to talk about, because your audio has turned terrible. Oh, my goodness. Your audio is bad tonight, so thank you so much for talking to us. Joseph Akable is our chief legal correspondent. Now, what you don't know is that in the original judgment, the judge on the trial case had handed him down 45 years for all 3 counts, and he served 19 of those 45 years. In this appeal case, it was also indicated that the sentencing was harsh, given the facts of the case, that he was convicted on belief and suspicion. Man, I don't know what you make of that story, but very distressing, very heart-wrenching, and this shouldn't be happening in our justice system for a small country like ours, a country where it's not really that complicated, is it? But let's move away from that. Speaking of not being that complicated, why are women having to wait 30 years after the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, and still our issues are not getting attended to properly? Tonight, a spotlight ahead of International Women's Day. Now, tomorrow, the 8th of March, 2025, Ghana will join the rest of the world to celebrate and call for accelerated action to unlock equal rights and opportunities for women and girls all over the world. This year's commemoration marks the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. Ahead of the day, we want to throw the spotlight on women doing marvelous things for our collective survival. What you're about to see is part of an extensive documentary highlighting the contribution of women to society and the difficulties we face every day. Here's a snippet of the story of Safwa Ompong, Deputy Chief Nursing Officer of the Benz Unit Kolebu Teaching Hospital.
There are a lot of moments that I have to cry when children come here and they are bent. I look at them and I ask myself, if the child was mine, can I contain what the child is going through? So a child who was bent from the head to toe. And when I asked, it was a sanitizer. This sanitizer that we used to rub our hands. And I was told they were using it for an experiment. A child, about 10 years. And they sparked the match and the child's clothes were on fire. If the child had known that I have to stop, drop and roll, this child would have been saved. And when they came here from head to toe, this child has been bent. He died. that is almost 100% burns. And I cried. I was emotionally down for almost 2 to 3 days. We are challenged with a lot of nurses because people are afraid. I've mentored a lot of people who have been able to stand firm.
Well, catch the full story tomorrow on the news midday and at 7 p.m. here on TV3. That's Safwa Obumpong, who tells us how she contributes to society survival at the bench unit of the Kolebu Teaching Hospital. We've also been hearing from the Vice President, Ghana's very first female Vice President, Professor Nana Opoku-Agyeman, ahead of the 2025 International Women's Day. Take a listen.
Women of Ghana, International Women's Day is our day. This year, it is being organized under the theme, Accelerate Action. We do not only recognize the profound contributions of women in every sphere of society, but we also affirm our commitment to breaking the barriers that have long hindered our full participation in the nation's progress. Ghanaian women are the backbone of our families, communities, and economy, of course, whether in our markets, in the boardrooms, classrooms, farmlands, or on the beaches. Women continue to drive innovation, nurture growth, and shape the future of our country. Our contributions to business, to governance, education, healthcare, and the sciences are invaluable. And as a nation, we owe it to ourselves to create an ecosystem where everyone can thrive without imposed limitations. Over the years, we have made significant strides in advancing gender equality and empowering women. Under our current leadership of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, we have taken bold steps and remain dedicated to ensuring.
Well, catch the full message on our socials, Facebook, x.com, and on YouTube. We'll bring it to you also in subsequent broadcasts. But I just want to remind you that at 7 a.m. here on TV3, Alfred Okanse will assemble a table of men, and bring you key points tomorrow. But you know it's always fireworks. If we could just show the flyer quickly. Martin Kpebu is coming. Dr. Peter Tukono is coming. Professor Stephen Adey will also be there. Bernard J., Franklin Kujo, and Bobby Bunsen will all be on the show tomorrow at 7 a.m. And on Sunday at 2 p.m., I entreat you to join my conversation with the chair of the National Economic Dialogue, Dr. Ishmael Yamson, as we discuss this economy ahead of the budget on Tuesday, March 11, 2025. Hot issues at 2 p.m. here on TV3. I'm Kemini Amano, always grateful, always a pleasure coming your way. I'll see you same time next Friday. Bye-bye.
Ghana Tonight is brought to you by
Flamingo Paint, superior durability.